Tekfe'nin filmi var, Keynote oturum sponsorumuz. Hemen ona geçmek istiyoruz.
A pioneering perspective, setting standards. A sense of quality that determines excellence. Architecture with ambitious new lines. A sustainable lifestyle that redefines the fabric of urban living. Authentic, unrivaled concepts at key locations. Tekfen Real Estate, ever for the better.
Geçmişte ülkeler önemliydi, günümüzde kentler önemli ve kentler arasında muazzam bir rekabet var ve 5 kıtadaki kentler birbiriyle yarışıyor. Global şehirler arasında öne çıkmak için İstanbul ne yapmalı? Ne tür fırsatlar sunuyor? Bunu birazdan dinleyeceğimiz JLL'in Global Araştırma Direktörü. JLL'in ödüllü Kentler Araştırma Merkezi var ve onun kurucularından birisi ve gayrimenkul ve global şehirler uzmanı. Şimdi hep birlikte JLL Global Araştırma Direktörü Jeremy Kelly'yi sahneye davet etmek istiyorum. Hep birlikte lütfen alkışlayalım. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Jeremy Kelly. Welcome to Istanbul, please.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here today, and it's a wonderful pleasure to be in Istanbul, which is a little while since I've been here on business. I won't keep you too long for lunch, so I will endeavour to stick with the half an hour, absolute maximum. JLL, as international real estate advisors, have been running our cities research program for 15 years now to better understand the ingredients of a successful city and to understand the role that real estate plays in the very success or failure of our cities. And so what I wanted to do today was to reflect on Istanbul's competitive position as it goes on its journey up the value chain, as it builds an innovation-based economy, and in a world where massive urbanization, continuing globalization, and rapid technological advancement is really changing and creating a new world order of cities. Now, we're all familiar with the frenetic pace of urbanization that's happening across the globe. But our sense is that we're at one of those trigger points that was mentioned earlier, where evolution and revolution combined can pull apart all that's familiar and ordered into a world of unfamiliarity and complexity. And it's exactly this world that our cities are now being affected, and it is transforming our cities, our built environment, and our real estate markets. It's the world of the fourth urban cycle. What do I mean by that? It's a reconfiguration of the urban hierarchy as 1.5 million people somewhere in the world move to a city every single week. It's the world of the fourth industrial revolution, where digital disruption is really testing the very fabric of our cities. And it's the world where agility and flexibility are becoming the watchwords of success rather than just economic size and growth. And so we're going to have to it's really going to test our evaluation of what makes for a successful city. The old world measures of GDP growth and foreign direct investment are becoming increasingly outdated. We're now talking about diversity and tolerance and agility and transparency are becoming the real watchwords. And the real buzzword currently is future-proofing. How a city future-proofs itself to ensure long-term momentum. And we're having to deal with all these new concepts about who'd have thought just a couple of years ago that we'd have to think about a city and its biodiversity and measuring success on the basis of things like biodiversity, and brand, for example. So really testing our traditional perspectives. And in this new world order, where the number of cities that are appearing on the radar of investors or corporate occupiers or developers is rising exponentially. And what I've done here, as they compete for talent and for businesses and for capital, and what we've done here is to just highlight 300 global cities, and we've highlighted the 4 big European cities in red, and it just illustrates that Istanbul is having to work hard just to stay ahead of the game, to maintain its visibility and global influence. But it's far more complicated than a few bubbles on a chart. The traditional hierarchy of cities is breaking down. It no longer makes sense for us to be comparing every city against every other city. They're not competing for the same thing. And so we've identified a typology of cities that defines the current global landscape, built around the distinctive roles that they play within the global economy. And so different groups of cities have similar characteristics and advantages, with peer groups of cities often well outside of their sort of national framework. And I don't think many of you, particularly at the back of the room, can read the cities, but we've identified 10 different types, and we'll certainly circulate the presentation afterwards so that you can look at this at your leisure. But we have what we call the Big Seven right in the core. That's London and New York and Tokyo. We have the global contenders that surround the Big Seven. Think Los Angeles and Toronto and San Francisco. We then have what we call our New World cities, cities that are innovative, that are lifestyle cities, that are influencers. On the right, we have our emerging world cities that are the powerhouses, the enterprises, the mega hubs. And then at the top of the bottom, we have hybrid cities and national growth engines. Now, Istanbul is, according to our definition, firmly one of these 10 cities that are classified as mega hubs. Cities, as we all know, of massive scale, that are hubs of major transitioning economies with improving global connectivity, building out their service and retail offer to complement their traditional strengths in manufacturing. And collectively, these 10 cities have massive opportunities for the real estate market, but equally, they have massive challenges as they look to absorb unprecedented rates of demographic growth. And in many respects, Istanbul is the poster boy of rapid urban expansion. I do like this slide because it does illustrate the way, for me, how Istanbul has grown from a city of barely 4 million back in 1975 to one of 6.5 million by 1990, and today a city in excess of 15 million people. And put simply, it just epitomizes the challenge of mega hubs, of how they absorb such massive rates of demographic growth. And some of our mega hubs, some of those 10 mega hubs, are more successful and agile than others. And based on a range of well-respected third-party indices produced by the likes of A.T. Kearney or the Mori Memorial Foundation, Istanbul actually does remarkably well against its peer groups of cities. Its favorable position reflects its truly transformational journey over the last few decades with regards to massive infrastructure investment, putting in place metropolitan government, building its global connectivity and its regional role. And here I show Istanbul's position on 3 key areas. And it shows that in terms of those long-term economic fundamentals relating to infrastructure and innovation, It is stronger, again, than most of its global peers. Istanbul, second to Moscow when it comes to infrastructure. Second also in terms of science, technology, and entrepreneurship. Very important, obviously, for the innovation economy. And mid-table when it comes to brand and influence and reputation. And so Istanbul is standing out as home to innovation and commerce and for advanced infrastructure that all go well for the longer-term prospect of this metropolitan economy. And the city's real estate infrastructure is equally being built out. And in the office sector alone, there is significant office development underway. And what I've done here is to compare office construction over the next 2 years relative to the existing inventory against those 9 other mega hubs. And Istanbul comes out perhaps on top. And for the real estate community, that inherently large supply pipeline feels uncomfortable for many within the real estate professional. But from a city competitive position, an ample supply of available real estate, commercial real estate, does provide a city with flexibility and the bandwidth to grow and with a crucial competitive advantage. So let's just turn this one on its head. So Istanbul relatively flattered when it comes to comparing itself against its immediate global peers, but where will Istanbul sit in 5 to 10 years' time? Clearly, I'm sure Istanbul's aspiration is to move beyond that mega hub classification as it moves up the value chain. So where will Istanbul's journey take it? Will it morph into one of those different styles of cities that we highlighted, or will it create its own new definition of a successful city? So will its strengths in science and technology and the knowledge economy enable it to compete, for example, with what we call the innovator economies? These cities are particularly rich in technology startups. They are at the very forefront of the global digital economy. Cities like Berlin and Stockholm and Austin, Texas, that have hugely vibrant startup cultures, or Boston and Munich, that are building their success around very deep academic infrastructure, such as MIT and Harvard in Boston. Or is Istanbul more like an enterpriser? Certainly, Istanbul has similar characteristics to many of these largely Asian enterprises. These are large-scale entrepreneurial hubs of trade that are moving successfully up the value chain. And they're becoming innovation hubs in their own right, successfully developing their own breed of innovative startups. And think of places like Shenzhen in China, Bangalore in India, which are really building up their innovation capacity. And they're certainly cities to watch for some of the next innovations, not only more broadly, but within our own sector, but perhaps not necessarily cities that you'd look to in terms of the overall package. Because I think given Istanbul's scale and aspiration, I think we should certainly be looking to the experience and characteristics of the 10 global contenders. These are amongst the most well-rounded cities with the deepest concentrations of capital, corporations, and talent, supported by preeminent global connectivity. Think about sort of Los Angeles or San Francisco or Toronto or Sydney. And significantly, this group also includes Shanghai and Beijing, cities that have already made that journey from mega hub into our global contenders category. And in fact, we believe that Shanghai might move into the big 7 to make the big 8 within the next 5 years, based on massive infrastructure investment, but significantly over the last 2 or 3 years, it's about how Shanghai and Beijing have moved their economy into the high value innovative sector. And in many respects, Istanbul is emulating the path that Shanghai and Beijing have gone with massive infrastructure investment, whether it's tunnels or bridges or new metros, and the real sort of marker of global aspiration is the new airport, which, depending on who you believe, will be amongst the largest in the world. And these ambitious infrastructure projects all go well, again, for the longer-term success of Istanbul. And by building out its infrastructure, in many respects, Istanbul is at what we call our hardware phase. And whilst it will continue to need to prioritize infrastructure investment, particularly with regards to mass transit, it's now having to, like Shanghai has been doing, plan for the next phase in its economic journey, when it's about what we call software development, which is a broader term to talk about nurturing the innovation capacity, moving up the value chain, about managing growth through better transparency and metropolitan governments, to build resilience through transformation and developing polycentric CBD metropolitan environment. It's what we call the 3 T's: technology, transformation, and transparency. And these 3 T's, technology, transformation, and transparency, really do resonate with real estate, and highlights the crucial role that real estate industry will play in this next phase of Istanbul's economic journey. Real estate has been typically associated with supersized schemes and impressive skylines, but the real value of real estate is how it can create creativity, collaboration, and encourage entrepreneurship. And so if I just quickly go through those 3 T's, on the technology front, Istanbul's technoparks have certainly provided an excellent platform for the development of the innovation economy, supported by the assets of the university infrastructure, and the well-established culture of knowledge and entrepreneurship. But I think what I'd like to do is just flag the fact that Istanbul also needs to be mindful of the need, the spatial, the geographical distribution of the innovation economy across the globe within cities is beginning to change. Traditionally, innovation economy, technology has been associated with edge-of-town business parks or technical zones. But but it's now becoming distinctly urban in its flavor. While business parks and technoparks will remain an essential ingredient of an overall city's offer, they're just part of a much broader mix of styles of innovation district that reflect the reimagination of industrial and port areas, that reflect the redevelopment of many central areas, that reflect the need for different styles of property. And it's increasingly evident that the most successful cities globally, whether it's Toronto or London or San Francisco Bay, have this broad mix of innovation districts, of technology cells that enable it to respond to the requirements of different styles of technology companies at different points in their evolution. And the success of of these innovation hotspots really depends on their buzz and their amenity and their connectivity in order to attract the best talent to their particular location. And it's also about diversity, the mix of tenants and occupiers. And these projects tend to be much more embedded into local communities. It's very much about organic growth in many situations. And real estate does play a key role in knitting together these successful innovation hubs. The role of real estate, as I've mentioned earlier, is about creating collaborative environments where we will find the next generation of world-beating ideas coming from. And if we translate those factors into Istanbul, the city already has the real advantage of vibrancy, buzz, and street life. You know, it's one of the world's most culturally dynamic cities, and that puts the city at a competitive advantage in a world where there is a lack of uniqueness, where many cities are looking to have identical or having identical urban form. And so if owners and developers can activate and transform their real estate to build on this energy of the Istanbul metropolitan economy, we could well see that Istanbul will have one of those world-beating innovation districts over the next decade. And urban transformation is not just about new schemes, new projects. It's also about the repurposing of real estate, particularly in an environment where we're seeing the hybridization of the property sectors, the blurring of lines between offices, residential, retail, industrial, hotels. And flex space is a good example of that. It's significantly disrupting the world's office markets, reflecting the evolving nature of the work and the demands from corporate occupiers for greater agility and flexibility and technological prowess. And Istanbul is no exception, and this chart simply shows the steady growth in flex space that accounts today for about 2.5%, just over 2.5% of the Istanbul's real estate office inventory. And the third T is transparency. We've been running our transparency index now for 20 years, and there seems to be within the last 2 or 3 years a real acknowledgement, particularly amongst city authorities, about the importance of having a transparent real estate market, not just to attract investment, but also to help business efficiency and help with the economic management of a city. And so our latest index, which now covers 158 metropolitan economy, puts Istanbul in 45th position out of 158. So sitting just behind those other mega hubs such as Mexico City and Moscow and Sao Paulo, for example. While significant advances have been made in terms of Istanbul's transparency over the last decade or so, and certainly back in 2012, 2014, Istanbul was one of the top performers when it came to transparency improvement. But its progress does appear to be slowing, or has slowed. The momentum hasn't continued. And it needs to put in place several areas for advancement about market tracking, about performance measurement, crucially about metrics that measure energy efficiency and sustainability. But also it's about PropTech, which we heard about earlier. PropTech is really making a difference to transparency across the globe, whether that's at one end, Stockholm and Amsterdam, really pushing the boundaries of what are transparent practices, right the way through to places like Kigali in Rwanda, which are finding that PropTech can help them to leapfrog the normal process of transparency. So PropTech is certainly one to keep our eye on. So, final slide. Our mantra at JLL is that real estate is a contributor to city success and not just a consequence of city success. At the large scale, it can truly transform a city's route to success by building new neighborhoods, by creating new districts that create new specializations, improve lives, and create a new meaning for a city. And at a more micro level, it can also contribute to transparency and sustainability as we build more sustainable and smart buildings. But real estate is ultimately about providing the productive and efficient space that is the real hallmark of a successful city, that is required by both occupiers and by their talent. And also creating a sense of space, of place, and vibrancy. And vitally, providing this sort of affordable space that is really important for the long-term success, for affordable residential space, I should say, that are the real hallmarks of a successful city. So, Istanbul's journey to a mega hub, from a mega hub to an innovation-based economy is in place, but it still is only part complete. And real estate owners do have an important role to play in repurposing the real estate market so that it is equipping Istanbul for the next stage of its economic journey, and as its citizens, as our citizens, demand new and cool things from their real estate provision. So thank you very much for listening to me today. A quick canter there through our perspective on the opportunities and challenges for the Istanbul real estate market and city economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this comprehensive presentation. Repurposing the economy is the key.
Yeah.
And sustainability, transparency, these are the key things for the coming generations. That's our homework.
Yes.
From mega hub to a purpose-driven economy.
Well, we should be going for the global contenders, and it's about transparency, urban transformation, and technological prowess. Those are the three messages that I'd want to take away.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation. Değerli katılımcılarımız, öğle yemeğimiz fuaye alanında ve Bosforus salonunda. Çok çalıştık dinlenmek için. Hepinizi dışarıya davet ediyoruz. Afiyet olsun.